If you desire to walk in alignment with your purpose, to live a life of joy, abundance, and fulfillment, you've come to the right place. This is Sarah Locke, and welcome to Purpose Unlocked. Hello, everyone. Today we're talking about entrepreneurship, and I am so excited to be joined by my friend Traci who has her own company where she helps the children and youth and people growing up navigate the waters of new adulthood. So what that looks like, there are so many things that we all wish that we knew when we were transitioning from high school to college or from high school into our careers and trades. And there's just a lot of information out there that so many of us don't even know how to find. So she is the go-to person that does all of the training for helping your kid navigate the waters in what she calls Adulting 101.
Yes.
Traci, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you are a wealth of knowledge, especially to me, someone who's a new entrepreneur, and I'm just really excited for you to share all of that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here. So thank you.
So Traci, for me personally, I got the entrepreneurial bug when I went to grad school for my MBA. I actually went to school for my MBA because I thought to myself, all right, I want to climb the corporate ladder. I want to be independent. And so I had big dreams and goals for myself. And that's what made me want to go to grad school. But then in grad school, I was like, wait a minute, I could actually work for myself, making myself rich instead of making someone else rich is kind of the idea that was fed to me, right? Because you're getting your MBA, it's all about, thinking for yourself, how to build a business and those types of things. So what sparked your entrepreneurial bug?
I would say it was actually similar in the sense I was in my MBA as well, which was really kind of funny. I was tasked to do a business plan in one of my courses. And I had a business idea that I had thought about for a while, but it was just kind of one of those things. I was like, oh, it sounds like a nice idea, but I'm in no rush to do any of those things. And during this, I started to kind of put together this business plan. And the whole reason that I even had the business idea was because what I was doing. I was working in higher education, spending a ton of time in high schools around Central Ohio, and saw this huge gap with kids where they had no clue what they wanted to do with their life. All of them just figured, I'll just go to college and figure it out, and just making really poor decisions for their future because nobody was helping them make better decisions or figure it out the right way. And so that was where the idea came from, was like, it was more of, I see this need, and I know I wish I would have had something when I was that age, because I made a lot of poor decisions because I didn't have somebody, a mentor or a coach or somebody guiding me. And so that was kind of what the idea sparked from, was seeing this need and the frustration and really that passion to help empower the youth to not end up like I did as a young adult. So that was kind of what started it. And then the business plan is where it kind of started to come together and started to kind of get pieced together during my master's program as well. But I still had no intention of starting the business right away. And then COVID happened and I lost my job. And I'm like, I guess this is a good time to just go ahead and do this. So okay. I jumped right in.
Okay. What was the thing that you were the most scared of starting your own business?
It's funny. I feel like in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of fear because I was like, oh, I got all this time now, the world shut down, like no big deal. I'll try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and I'll find something else. But I think the fear started happening when I started getting clients, and you're like, oh gosh, this is real. Like, this is happening. People are paying me. Like, oh my gosh, I've always done this just as part of a job, but never to give somebody invoices and all that. And I think then it became more of a fear around selling, of not so much being told no, but wanting it more than they did, of like, oh, I really want them to say yes to this. And so you just start to kind of psych yourself out and then overthink it. And so that, I think for me, the biggest fear I've had throughout is kind of, part of it is a little bit of an imposter syndrome, where I sometimes feel like, oh, am I really good at this? Am I really qualified to do this? Even though I know I am, you start to get that in your head, especially when you see other people that are doing some similar stuff and you're like, oh man, they have this and that's really cool. Or look at all the clients they have, they must be more successful than me. And you start to kind of play that comparison game. I would say that's kind of it, but it didn't happen right away. It was after I kind of got into business for about a year and a half is when the fear started to kind of come out, more of fear of success and more of a fear of like being an imposter.
Okay. You mentioned the difficulty of of selling, and then that feeling natural, and then feeling like, can I really help these people? And I think that that's something that I've struggled with too. I think that the selling part is where I feel kind of weird. I wouldn't say yucky, because I know that what I'm offering is very, very helpful.
Mhm.
And I think that you should feel that way as well. So how did you, I have found, I would assume with parents as well, them kind of thinking, well, the school should already be teaching this, or they should learn this in college. For me, dealing with teaching emotional intelligence, unfortunately, it's the people with very low emotional intelligence that aren't really going to know that they need the thing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they might not know that they need the training, or they might be working with a team that's just not jiving, not collaborating well, and they don't really know what the answer is.
Mhm.
So what have you done to get your message out there and show people and prove to people that this is what you need and this can really help you? So almost like selling, but in a way that's like, I have the answer to your problem. How have you packaged that?
Yes, and I'll be honest, it is still a challenge with what I do, but I have learned a lot with it. And honestly, the approach that I've started to take with it, which is why I started this podcast, is that more real talk, like calling those things out. Like, we need to talk about this. I mean, I was actually just talking to somebody the other day about the frustration I have sometimes when parents are like, oh, this is awesome and people need this, but not my kid. My kid's set, like they're doing great. They understand money. And I'm like, that's awesome. But let's be honest, nobody's perfect. Nobody knows everything.
Mhm.
You can always improve. So even if you think, oh, my emotional intelligence is pretty good, that's awesome. I bet it can get even better.
Mhm.
And I always love the term, especially with coaching. I mean, that's really what we are as coaches, mentors, people to really help. If you look at professional athletes, and I do like to talk about this with parents who have kids that are in sports. Okay, your kid could be the best basketball or football player or soccer player, whatever.
Mhm.
They still have to have a coach.
Yeah.
Because every professional athlete in the world has a coach. They have multiple coaches. And I'm like, that's what you're looking at. It's like they're top of the game in their sport. But guess what? They wouldn't be where they are if they didn't have a coach.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of the approach to take with families and with clients that could be working with you, is that whole aspect of, okay, you could be the best at what you got. You can be the best emotional intelligence. You can be best with money and making really good decisions, but are you maximizing it? Are you being efficient with it? Are you really utilizing your skills and abilities to the best ability possible? And I think that's sometimes the struggle is, and I think sometimes people are embarrassed and don't want to admit that, especially when I work with parents. Parents like, they don't want to admit, oh, I haven't taught my kid this stuff. It's like, that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad parent. And I think there's some of that sometimes too. And probably in your case as well with emotional intelligence of, oh, I'm an idiot, or I'm stupid, or I feel stupid. No, this is embarrassing. And I don't want Sarah to find me and figure out that I'm completely an idiot, don't know anything. And it's like, no, that's not what we do. We're not judging parents or students or clients. And we're here to help and fill that gap and kind of empower everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I like what you said with, even if they're the best at whatever it is, they can get even better. And for me personally, I do find myself to be someone who was naturally emotionally intelligent, and I got along really well with my coworkers. And one of the reasons that I got into this field was because I was doing a ton of project management, and they would usually, quote unquote, stick me with the difficult personalities. And I'm like, well, I don't mind that, because I don't mind the difficult people, because I'll get to know them and I'll get to find things about them that I enjoy, and I'll learn how to talk to them.
Right.
And that's just something that I just intuitively do because I love people.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't have that skill set. So I got into it thinking, okay, I need to teach other people this skill so that everyone can work better together.
Yep.
But then the more that I learned, the more self-development books that I read, the more I read about emotional intelligence and the Enneagram, and understanding myself better, and then understanding how other people think so much differently and why. I learned so much, and it really has helped me. So even on this journey, watching myself grow in an area that I feel like I was already really strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just goes to show that we can all just keep improving in our strong areas.
Yep. No, I love that, because I'm a firm believer in that with what I do. I mean, I'm always reading more, training more. Like I go to even other coaches that do college prep and college things. I go to their webinars sometimes to learn and like, okay, what am I missing? Where are my gaps? Because I want to be the best I possibly can for my clients. I mean, even like on the podcast, I bring people in that do kind of what I do in some aspects that could be competitors, but in my mind, they're not competitors. It's somebody that can add more value to the families that I work with. And that's really what it's all about. Is like, how can we show up and be the best for the people we're working with?
Absolutely. So let's talk about a difficult subject, which is money, because as entrepreneurs, we need to make money. And I think that when you're first starting out, this can be really difficult. And even if you're not brand new to the game, it comes in waves. You're not getting that steady paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yep.
So what was that like for you? Because I know that for me, that's a big challenge, going from a big corporate job where I was doing really well to now starting my own business. And it's like it feels like starting at zero, but like almost below zero, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, you're in the negative for weird.
Yeah. So how did you first start making paying clients, and then how do you keep going when the money's not coming in?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think that is so powerful for anybody listening that's thinking about business, because honestly, as an entrepreneur, that is probably the core struggle and why most people who start their own business quit, because the money is not consistent, especially in the beginning. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years now and I still don't have consistency. Granted, it took some time off when I had the baby, but it is the biggest challenge and frustration. And I will tell you, I've had friends of mine say, kudos to you that you keep going, because the money, it's not always there. I mean, when I do my taxes every year, I've not been positive yet for the last 3 years. So it's like I'm spending more into my business than I'm making in my business. But that's the reality of it when you're starting out. I mean, some businesses can be profitable very quickly, but coaching, I feel like, can take a little while because it's people are catching on to it, but it's still, they're not like all on board. But I would say that it's definitely a frustration. I will tell you, I made some really bad decisions financially in the beginning, because you think, oh, I got to sponsor this and do all these things. And I wish now I could go back to Traci in 2020 and 2021 and be like, no, don't put your money in that. It's not worth it. I'm still paying on an advertisement that I purchased in 2020 or 2021 that literally has done nothing for me. And they won't even change my branding because I've rebranded. They won't do any of the stuff, and they won't let me out of the contract, even though they're not doing what I like. I'm like, that business doesn't even exist. And so it is. But again, I think that's a lot of people hit that when they start business. They make poor financial decisions initially of like, oh, this sounds like a great opportunity. And everybody tells you, oh, marketing, throw money in marketing and sponsor stuff and get it. And for some businesses that makes sense. You're a paying company. Absolutely. You should be in your local magazine and, doing sponsorships and all this stuff. But for my business, it really didn't make sense. Like, and now looking back, I'm like, dang it, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I mean, and I'll be completely transparent with the audience. I mean, I do not get consistent clients. A lot of people see my social media and see me on the front and they're like, man, you're doing awesome. I see you everywhere and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah. And I have maybe a handful of clients that I made, $500 this month. And that's the reality of it right now. And part of it is the economy, I think is a little bit challenging for families. I did just make a big shift this past year to homeschool families, and that's a whole different aspect of challenges. I love the homeschool family world, which is why I shifted to that. And I know there's a huge need for what I do in that space, because they don't have a guidance counselor. They don't have the curriculum that I have. But I know homeschool families, a lot of time, it is a single parent household for money, and they don't have a ton of money coming in. So I've had to like really kind of look at my pricing structure. There's other businesses that sell to homeschool families where they're charging like nothing. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how that's sustainable, because this isn't a side hustle for me. This is like my business. Like this is for me to support my family. And so I will say it is the biggest challenge. And the one thing that keeps me going through it when I do have that, oh, I didn't make any money this month, or, oh, this didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen, or, oh, this launch completely flopped and nobody bought anything. I keep holding on to, I truly believe this is God's calling for me. I know this is what he wants me to do. He's opened plenty of doors and opportunities.
Mhm.
It's just his timing and not mine, which is so difficult. It's so hard because I'm like, but I need it now. Or please, can we fast forward a little bit? But that has been kind of what keeps me going. And then I kind of reflect back to like, I don't want to go back to the corporate world. Like, I don't want to go back and get a full-time job somewhere because my heart's not in it. My heart is 100% in this. And so then I just push myself a little harder. Like, all right, what do I need to do? What do I need to shift and pivot? And there are still times where I want to break down and cry and I want to quit and throw in the towel. And I go cry to my mom and be like, Mom, the world sucks and nobody wants to buy anything and all this other stuff. And then I kind of pick myself up and put myself back together and, pull up my big girl panties and, keep going. But that is honestly probably the biggest struggle and frustration, especially when you do see other businesses that are successful and are making it. And you're like, what are they doing different than me? Like, what am I not doing? Why am I not connecting? What is happening or where's the gaps? And sometimes it's just a lot of shifting and pivoting and trying this and trying that to kind of really figure out what works in messaging. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
No, I think you answered a lot of questions. You touched on a lot of different things, from the marketing to where are you investing your time and your money, and how to deal with things that aren't working. So if you were me, right, starting from the beginning, and one of the things that you had also touched on is that like there are times where you don't have a lot of clients.
Mhm.
So, and that's where I'm at right now, where I'm still growing. I'm trying to grow my reach. I have had clients. I have people that want to have me get back, which is exciting. But I'm trying to figure out how to schedule my time.
Mhm.
Because if you have a client, right, all of your time is being spent like prepping the material, training them, figuring out like what's working, how to help them more. So when you have a client, it's almost like you know what to do.
Yep.
And when you don't, I feel personally that I'm like, okay, now what? Like, obviously I should focus on organic social media marketing. And then how much time do you spend on that? So how do you allocate your time in kind of the lull, or like the calm before the storm, right? And in a way that's going to be the most lucrative for you?
So I have some really great coaches and mentors that I work with in that space of like marketing and sales, because they are the experts in that. And even though I have a marketing degree, it's different. And sometimes when you are so close to it, it's like, okay, well, I've got, goggles on. I can't see everything. And so having somebody else's perspective. And one of the best things that they ever said to me was focus on the money making things.
Mhm.
If it's not going to make you money, that's not something you need to be doing. So if you're developing a program, that's going to make you money, right? If you're developing social media content or a mastermind program that you can get people in and then offer your services, that's going to make you money. Even systems, building in a system and automation that's going to help kind of make it more automated and simple, so you're not having to do a lot of things manually, that's still going to help you with money because you're going to be able to streamline things. But if it's, I'm going to spend, 2 hours making this beautiful flyer, that's really not where the time should be spent, because that flyer might bring money to you, but not 2 hours of your time. So that was something that really was eye-opening for me, because in the beginning, I think it was a lot of busy work of like, oh, let me just do this and this and this. And now I'm a lot more intentional with my time of like, okay, what does my audience want? What do homeschool families really want? I just went to a conference and then, it came out clearly at career exploration is a huge one. Financial literacy is a huge one. The life skills piece is a huge one. And so I'm like, okay, those are the pieces that I really need to focus on for developing new products and curriculum right now. Like, that's the high priority. I did just switch systems, which I love, but it's a robust system. So I'm kind of also doing some back-end system setup too, just to make it as simple and easy as possible. But a lot of it, time blocking has been my favorite thing, because it keeps me on track and on schedule of what should I be doing when, and I base it around the time of day that I work best. So if I'm really creative in the afternoons, then the afternoons is when I do my creative type work. So creation and, whatever. If, the mornings are not my favorite thing, because I'm not a morning person at all, usually. It's stuff like this. I love to have conversations because this is easy for me to talk to somebody, to have a coaching client, to do that, because I am better at doing this in the morning than actually focusing on work. So I've kind of built my schedule around my own personal time clock, I guess you will. Time blocking, and I have some tools and things that really help with that too to keep me on track, because I'm a huge fan of systems, especially in entrepreneurship. I wouldn't say go buy everything, but there are definitely some that I would 100% recommend that you have in place to help you. So a project management tool, I use an AI one that I love because it is actually intuitive to my calendar. So it'll put my tasks around my calendar based on priorities. It's really nice because then I go right to my calendar and be like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be working on right now. Perfect.
What's that one called?
It's called Motion.
Okay.
Yes, and I have an affiliate link. I'm happy to share it with you. I want to set up an affiliate page just for people like, here, these are my tools and systems. And then I have
Do you have like a customer relationship management, which most people will call a CRM?
Yes, I do. So I have two of them because the one is my robust one I just switched to. It's like a one-stop shop. So it has social media scheduling in it. You can do your CRM, you can host your website, you can do funnels. I mean, literally, it has text marketing. It does everything. It's called Click Slow. I love it. I think they have a lifetime deal on it right now. It's like $400 for life.
Oh.
So not bad at all.
All right, that's not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. And then
You're giving us all the secrets.
oh yes, I'm telling you, it's ways to go. And then I use Flowdesk though for my email marketing because you can do it in ClickSlow, but I have better deliverability and I like their templates better in Flowdesk. So those are like my three like must-have systems. I've gotten rid of almost everything else. You can also use ClickSlow as your scheduler too. It has all the things, which is nice. So that is, I think, one of the keys to being efficient with your time is investing the time to set up automation. So client onboarding, any of the stuff that you can automate, setting that up so that's done. And then really focusing your time on what's going to bring clients into you. Kind of like think of like an inverted triangle, right? It's that big funnel at the top, whether it's an opt-in, a mastermind, whatever it is, it's something free to get people into the funnel. And then you start to work them down. To like a low ticket offer, a mid ticket offer, and then your high level offer. So I would say to anybody that, especially in the coaching world, that focusing on that model of like, okay, what's my free thing? What's something low ticket I can get, whether it's a PDF download, it's like $7, $20. Then having a mid ticket could be like $50 to $100. And then your high ticket could be your one-on-one coaching services, because not everybody's going to want one-on-one. Not everybody can afford one-on-one, but you can help them kind of figure out where they best fit. Which is in my business, that's how I have it. So I'm actually developing a mastermind right now. I'm going to actually develop several of them that are going to talk about different things that we have. And then I have low ticket offers that are our guides and workbooks. And then I have courses as my mid-tier. And then I have one-on-one coaching for those that really want that customized support, which is few and in between, especially in homeschool family world, because again, it's not budget friendly all the time. It's best bang for your buck, but you're going to invest in it.
Yeah.
And so I would say time-wise, really focusing on what's going to do that. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have people coming in the door consistently, you're not going to be making money consistently, which is, again, something I've had to learn the hard way and I'm implementing now, which I'm really excited about. But it's been a process of kind of figuring out, okay, this is what I need to spend my time on. And even when you start to get clients, this is where a lot of entrepreneurs fall off is, okay, I have clients, I'm really busy, I don't have time to do this now. It's like you have to always be doing that. And that is, I think, sometimes a struggle. And that's when you can start to hire help. Like I just hired 2 VAs and I am so grateful. So virtual assistants, for those that don't know what a VA is, they're somebody that literally is virtual from wherever. I have one that's in South Africa and I have one that's here in the States, and they're amazing. And they help me with the small tasks that are not money-making tasks that I just don't have time to deal with or do. And so it's amazing to kind of get that support.
And then how do you go about finding a VA?
Yes. So there's tons and tons of people out there. I recommend talking to your network, seeing if anybody recommends one first. And then if you don't have any like good recommendations of somebody, I would look into some VA matching programs. That's actually how I found my 2. It was through somebody had put a post in a Facebook group I'm part of with a bunch of women business owners. And she's very common in the space where it's like, okay, I trust her. She said she has a VA matching program that's free. And so I went in and I did the application. I looked at everything. She vets every VA that comes through, and I got like 4 or 5 applications from it. So it was really, really nice. And both of them are awesome and they're really good at what they do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot of the struggles because
So many struggles.
it feels like there might be more struggles than positives sometimes. But what are some of the benefits of being your own boss?
There are a lot of really good benefits to it. I would say the number one is the flexibility and being able to kind of be your own boss, manage your own time, kind of determine, what you're doing, when you're doing. You can say no to stuff like, okay, I don't want to do that project, or I don't want to work with this client because I know they're going to be a difficult client, or they're just not a nice person, or whatever it might be. Like, you have that benefit where if you work for somebody else and they're like, hey, here's your new client you're working with, you're like, oh, okay, great. But I think the flexibility, that whole, I would not say work-life balance because that's not a thing. And I will tell you, in entrepreneurship world, you're probably working more than you would in a corporate job, but you're doing what you love to do. And I think that's a huge benefit. You might be working more, but you might always be working, to be honest. I always have my phone on me if somebody messages me and I'm able to respond. And I try to do that because you just have to when you own your own business. Boundaries are still good. Have boundaries in place, and I have boundaries with clients. But if somebody messages me on Facebook and I'm just sitting on the couch at night, I'm like, yeah, I'll message you back. But I would say, though, that having that balance of being able to say, hey, you know what, I am going to go volunteer at my son's field day today, or especially for homeschool families that want to have a side hustle. It's like, that's a great way to be able to still homeschool your kids and still have some money going on the other side. I mean, as our daughter gets older, we're planning on homeschooling her, and I'll be able to do that because I'm already here and working here, and I don't have to go places that often, which is nice. So I think that is probably the number one benefit. The other benefit is, when you do talk about money, the reality is the ceiling, there's no limits. There's no ceiling. There's no cap, just like in a job role. It's like, oh, you can only make this much in this role. As an entrepreneur, I mean, realistically, you can make however little or much you want to make. I mean, it is up to you. I mean, you're going to put a lot more work in to get that money going. But I mean, the people that own the businesses in the world, make money. Small business owners, not quite as much unless they really apply themselves. But that's the nice part, is you can always go make more money. And I think that creative outlet is huge too, at least for me, because I love being able to kind of come up with new ideas and new products and try new things, and being able to help my clients the way I want to help them, not the way somebody else is telling me to help them. And I think that's a really nice benefit too.
Yeah. And I like what you said about there being no ceiling. I think that's the part that started to bother me about the corporate world was, I'm only worth as much as you have determined that I'm worth. And that was killing me. But yeah, I think that when you're starting your own business, like, the sky is the limit. Who is someone that you would consider like the big kahuna of your industry? Like, if you could be this person, or, who do you look up to and want to
that's such a good question. And it's challenging because in my space, honestly, there's not a lot of people that do what I do, which has made it difficult. I'm trying to think. That's a tough question though, because I don't think I've ever really thought about that. Because I know there are some companies that do what I do, but I'm not a fan of their business ethics, so I wouldn't say I look up to them. And they're very successful, and they've been around for longer than I have. I would say, if we're talking strictly success, there is one company, which I won't name since I just said that, but there is one company that is very successful, and they're doing all the things and been around for over 10 years. And I really appreciate that and would love to be able to get to a space. I mean, they're very well known in the area and all this stuff, but not somebody I would look up to personally, because they're not collaborative, which was kind of disheartening to me. I reached out to them when I first started my business to be like, hey, I know you do this stuff, here's what I'm doing. I'd love to like mentor under you or be a contractor, like help you in some way, or how could we partner? And they wanted nothing to do with it, which is a bummer. And I do run into that a lot with some of the other like college prep specifically companies. They're not big on collaborating because they and I'm like, guys, the reality is there's so many students in this world that need what we have. We could all do the exact same thing and it still wouldn't be enough of us.
Yeah.
So that is kind of disheartening. So I wouldn't say I'd look up to any of those. I mean, appreciate and respect that they have a bigger, more successful business than I do, which is awesome. And that's what I'm striving towards. But honestly, I would say one of my mentors, my marketing mentor, I would say I probably would strive to be more like her. She is very, very good at being visible. She is amazing with her clients, and just the way she serves people is what I love. I mean, she has a very successful business as well, but just how her work ethic, I mean, we definitely align, which is why I love to be in her group. And she's just amazing with her clients. She's always there for you. She goes above and beyond. Like the investment you make with her, you get at least tenfold back. That's kind of what I want to strive for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe I follow your visibility coach.
Yes.
So she calls herself the visibility queen. What is her
Chrissy
handle?
Connor.
Chrissy Connor.
Yep,
Okay.
she's amazing. Highly recommend if you're looking at doing business, follow her. She gives tons of free stuff away. That's the thing too. She just gives, here, guys, like here's all the things.
Yeah, she gives a lot of useful information. That's why I follow her and continue to follow her on Instagram.
Yep, she's awesome. I love her.
For me, it's Tony Robbins.
Oh yes, Tony Robbins is awesome.
So I tell everybody I'm the next Tony. He's getting a little older. He has a new baby, so I'm like Tony, just relax.
Right? I got you.
Yeah. I'll step in. Don't worry.
Be the blonde version.
Yeah. But there's a few people I look up to in this space. Tony Robbins specifically, he's the household name that everybody knows. My dad actually used to have his books listed to him, and I was like, oh, this is so cheesy and stupid. Right? Like when you're, 8 and you're like, oh yeah, mindset, whatever.
Yep. Like what the heck mindset?
Yeah. And now I love him. Like I listen to his stuff all the time. But some of the other people that I've watched grow their businesses, like I feel like I followed them when they were a little bit smaller, and then I've just watched them explode. One of which is Tabitha Brown.
I've heard that name. Okay.
I love her. She's like the world's favorite vegan. She's everyone's vegan mom.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So I knew that name for some reason.
Yeah, she's awesome. She went from just having her own TikTok, Instagram cooking videos because she became vegan for health reasons. And she has just blown up, and now she's all over Target, and she has all of these other, she's amazing. She has these cookbooks and she has other books. Yeah, so I loved watching her success because she's so authentic. She's this amazing Christian woman. She's very open about her faith and who she is. She's very all about like God is love and not hate and judgment. Just everything she stands for is like, yes, go Tab. And then Jay Shetty. I love Jay Shetty because he's also a very spiritual person, and he gives awesome advice as far as like mindfulness and controlling your emotions. I think that he's someone that would be great to follow if you want to go on like a spiritual journey of, self-reflection and so self-management and self-growth.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So those are a few. If you could combine them all together.
Yes.
That's me.
I like it. There you go. That's perfect. Yeah, I'm a big Dave Ramsey person too. I mean, just because him as a person, like not even just as a Dave Ramsey coach, but I love that he is honest. He brings the truth. He's obviously big follower of Jesus and very, very so even with his company. And I think that is huge. And he does have a really big passion for helping and make a difference in people's lives, especially money. So yeah.
I agree with some of Dave Ramsey's teachings and not all of them.
Yes.
So I'm not a huge Dave Ramsey fan. I don't dislike him. I'm just not a fan.
And I get that. He's one of those people because he's a little bit harsh, and I don't want to be harsh, but I do love like his radio show. Sometimes I'm like, oh, Dave, be a little nicer, man, a little nicer. But it's coming from a place where he wants to help. And that's what I appreciate from him. And
he's saying what works for him.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that that's important to realize too, like just in the way that there are so many ways to become wealthy and successful in that very specific financial investing space that he's in. Then there's a ton of other huge names. Like there's Grant Cardone, there's Rob Kawasaki. I hope I'm saying his last name right. But so Robert Kawasaki is the guy that did Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes,
and his whole methodology is like the polar opposite of Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey's like no debt, no debt, no debt, and Robert Kawasaki's like leverage all the debt. It's great. So and and I'm not telling people to leverage all the debt because I think most people don't understand how to use it.
Yes.
I think it's an amazing tool if you know how to use it. And
Yep.
if you don't and you haven't studied the Rich Dad Poor Dad books, then it's not something that's for you. I think Dave Ramsey's approach is something that is probably more approachable and digestible for the average
Yes.
person.
I would agree.
But I also like investing in real estate. So that's why I'm more on Robert's side.
Yep. I get that. And I think that's the important piece when it comes to money is like, it's what works for you.
Mhm.
But I agree. And I think that's where Dave Ramsey is so popular, because among the normal general population, it is an easier, simple model to follow versus like, you know, oh, you got to learn the investment strategies, or you got to learn all about real estate if you want to be around some real estate. I mean, that is not for everybody. And that's can be very overwhelming sometimes too.
And there's a lot of tax benefits to doing that. But that gets really complicated really fast.
It does. And if you have to know it, even if you have a great accountant, you still need to know that stuff, because I think all these people have gotten taken advantage of. I mean, talk about that in the business world. You get taken advantage of by people that are, oh, I can help you, and I'll help you with your business. I'll help you get clients, and I'll help you manage your money, and I'll help you. And people, if you don't know it already, you're going to get screwed over. I mean, I tell people that with like hiring a VA, you better know that system first before you have your VA do it. Even if that's their specialty, you need to know it.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're having somebody else do. Just like an employee, you're not going to bring an employee in your company and hire them to do a job that you don't even know how to do. Because how are you going to train them? How are you going to make sure they're doing it right? Like any of those things.
Yeah.
So yes, that's a whole nother business conversation.
Yeah. I think it depends. I think what you said works really well most of the time when like you have to at least know at a high level.
Yes.
Like how the system works, what these people need to be doing, and then if they're doing it correctly. I think there's other times like me, for example, my corporate background is in advanced analytics. And I was the project manager managing these big advanced analytics projects, working with data scientists. And I've watched people hire data scientists, and you're hiring people fresh out of college with PhDs in statistics. Like these people know more than the rest of us.
Right.
You know, so we have to really, sometimes you really have to lean on the experts.
You do.
Yeah. So if you're hiring help or hiring an employee to help with something, I think you need to be the expert. But if you're hiring someone because you need an expert, you need to make sure that. But you're going to pay for that.
Yes, you are. You are. Exactly. And it's so good to do your research to make sure they are an expert. I think that's the challenge sometimes too. It's like somebody looks real good on paper, but do they really know what they're talking about? Yeah.
You have to be able to ask the right questions.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. It doesn't mean you have to know all the things. You just need to know the right things.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me more about what, I know you talked about what got you into this space, but why this space? I'm curious, like what about emotional intelligence and kind of making your own path in that space with Enneagram? Like why that direction instead of something else? Because I know you have a huge love for, health and wellness and fitness and all those things. So I'm just curious, like what made you go this direction?
I think it's actually because I went through a difficult period in my life where I kind of just threw myself into all of these self-help books. And the more that I read and I learned, and I've just gathered all of this information, that I started to realize like, oh, these are tools that people like Tony Robbins are teaching to other people. So if I'm gaining all of this knowledge, then I can be teaching that specifically. The reason that I went the emotional intelligence route instead of the health and wellness route is because I feel like health and wellness, it's something that's very, very like deeply personal, and I can help you understand your personality type. I can help you understand things about your body and what works well. I can help you understand like you don't need to eat, I don't know, steak every night, but you can have beans. Not that steak's bad, but you can have a black bean burger and you'll have plenty of protein and you're not going to die. You'll still gain muscle. So there's just certain things that it's easier for me to explain to people their personality and how they work with people. I think that that's more obvious. Once your eyes are open to how you think and how others think, you can't close it again, right? Whereas most people know that exercise is good for you.
Right.
The more research I've done, like, cause these exercise programs, these eating programs, is it better to be vegan? Is it better to be plant-based? Is keto okay? No, you're probably gonna have a heart attack, but that's just my personal opinion. So I think that paleo is really good and works for some people. I think that plant-based, where it's predominantly vegan with some like healthy meat and animal protein. So there's so many things that work really well depending upon your body type. And that's another thing. It's really, the body is so complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to know without the proper testing, which is very, very expensive. Like,
Yes.
what is the best combination of things for your body?
Yep.
In general, eat healthy meats and vegetables. Don't eat processed food.
Yeah.
And exercise multiple times a week.
Right.
And if you do those things, and this is not revolutionary information. I'm not sharing with you guys the secret to a long life here, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation is, if you exercise and eat healthy, you're gonna be healthy and you're going to eliminate the vast majority of diseases.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we live in a country where the food is not regulated the way that it should be.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay as much attention as they do in places like Europe. They put a ton of crap in our foods that should not be in there.
No.
And
Yeah, it's like,
so,
why? What's the point? Like, honestly.
yeah. So the more processed food you're eating, and so that to me is just this really, that's just like an uphill battle. I can't.
Yeah.
And it's a hill I'm not willing to die on.
I don't blame you.
So I didn't go the health and wellness route just because, again, those are personal decisions. They're very difficult decisions that you have to be making for yourself. Like me, for example. Do I think that wine and alcohol is the most healthy thing for you? No, I don't. But do I like wine? Yes, I do. Am I going to stop drinking wine because I do consider myself very healthy? No, I'm not. So we have things that we enjoy.
Yep.
And if yours is ice cream, just make sure you're balancing that, making sure you're still going to the gym. Like, you can't have ice cream for every meal.
Right.
But I can't be the person. I'm not going to be in your kitchen telling you not to. So that's, yeah.
I get that.
There's no new news in the health and wellness space.
It's true.
Go to the gym and eat healthy.
If anything, it's like accountability at that point, I feel like, or handling.
Yeah.
Like, some people are just like, tell me what to eat, make my meal for me. Like, I think it's more that space, if anything.
Yeah. And I think I have tried really hard to help certain people in that space. And whether it's family or close friends. And I think that I just get really frustrated and upset when I see people, because I have watched family completely destroy their health. I think that it's just like too much of like a personal thing for me. Like, I can't watch you do this to yourself.
Yep. I get that.
But the emotional intelligence space is just something that's so teachable that is not something that we hear about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually taught the opposite. Men especially are taught that anger is fine. Anger is a healthy emotion. It's manly to be angry. Definitely not manly to be sad. Not manly to feel rejected or feel shame. But those are real feelings that real people feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that creating a space that's just open and healthy for people to talk about their emotions, but then talk about why they feel certain emotions, like the Enneagram, for example. Ones actually are more prone to anger. Mm-hmm. My husband, for example, is a 1. And a 7 in an unhealthy and stressed state can also go to a 1. So you can imagine if Mark's in a bad mood, then I'm in a bad mood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that could be like.
Yeah. But I also know the positive characteristics of a 1. Normally the 1s can get angry because they are very hypercritical of themselves. So they put a lot of pressure on themselves because the 1 is the perfectionist. And so I know that he has this tendency toward perfection. I also know that he wants the rest of the world to be perfect and just. 1s want what's good. And 1s have very high moral values that they've set for themselves. So, for example, I'm a 7. The 7s, we don't want to feel pain. We don't like sad things. Don't come to us with that. We don't want it. But Mark is obsessed with like these crime podcasts and like he listens to the news all the time. And I personally don't.
No.
I don't, because it's sad.
Yeah.
And I don't want it.
Yep. I don't blame you. Yep.
So he'll tell me stories about something that he read on the news recently. And at first I get like really bothered by it because I'm like, why is he telling me this? He knows I don't want to hear it. But then I realize that it's like he wants me to be prepared should anything bad happen to me, right? So we have to prepare for things. But also one of the reasons he loves these crime podcasts is because he loves that at the end there's always justice.
It's true. Yep, that makes sense.
So he has this obsession with justice and things being right and kind of coming around full circle. And I'm like, I don't want it. But
like, good for you, honey, but
yeah, but because I know he's that way, I know that he's not sharing this news with me to torture me. It's because that this is just the way he thinks, and he thinks that like the happy ending. I don't think he thinks it negates everything else that happened, but like for me, I'm just like, no, that was a really sad story. I don't care that it ended well. Like, I don't want it at all.
Yep.
But so just understanding the different personality types and yeah, like my sister being a 9, she's the peacemaker, which makes her very easy to talk to. But the 9s can sometimes be perceived as lazy, even though they're not.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that I've been like, see, like, she is a very peaceful person. She's super easy to talk to. And the 6 is the worrier. They worry about everything, but they're also called the loyalists. So they're very loyal people. They tend to hold family like to a very high esteem. So my dad is a 6, definitely a family man, like takes care of his girls, but he worries about everything. And then being the person that I am, the 7 is the forever optimist, and the 6 is like the forever pessimist. Like, what can go wrong? Everything that can go wrong, we have to prepare for the worst. And I'm not that way. But now that I understand that, I'm like, oh, like that's why he thinks that way.
Yep.
And then I've seen that in coworkers of mine where I'll try to like not call them out, but say, I see that your thought pattern is very much this way. Like you're thinking of the worst case scenario. And then I'll try to point out like, this could actually be happening and it's more the best case scenario. And a lot of the time it is actually the best case scenario or somewhere in the middle. Like we didn't have to worry.
Right.
But understanding how people think that way, not just invalidating what they're saying. Oh my gosh, like you're always such a negative Nancy. That's not going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. You're always thinking of the worst. I think knowing how to approach those people, because for them, those are very legitimate fears.
Right.
And in order for their fears to be mitigated, they are generally people that need a lot more detail.
Yes.
Because if you've thought about all the details, then, you will have mitigated the risks associated with whatever plan it is that you're proposing.
Yep.
So just understanding all of those things. And then obviously there's all 9 of them. So there's a lot of different personality types, and depending upon which one you fall into, and you can kind of fall into a combination of a lot of them because they are all connected, and just understanding what that looks like for you and your coworkers and your family, and then how to work together better.
I love that too. And I think because I talk about that sometimes with like, because I love DISC. That's been my go-to for communication training specifically. But it's exactly what you're talking about with Enneagram, where with families, this is a crucial, especially when you got teenagers. You need to know your teenagers, personality and communication style and these different things, because it's going to help you understand them better. And by then teaching your teenager these things, it's going to help them understand you better and the people around them better. So when they're coming home and they're like, oh my gosh, at our co-op today, so-and-so was blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, let's now talk about that. Now we can have this open conversation about, well, what style do you think they are? What kind of personality do you think they are? And then you can dive deeper into it. Like, okay, well, why then, if you think that's how their personality is, why do you think they reacted that way? Or why do you think that's what they said? And now you can start to pick it apart. My son hates this because I do this all the time with him, but he'll come home and he'll be like, oh, so-and-so was mean at school today. Or, this teacher was blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that. I mean, we don't always go super deep into the emotional intelligence piece because I don't know the person. So we can't talk about it to that level, but we'll say, well, let's look at a perspective of maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe something happened at home, or, just trying to talk through that stuff, because I think when we can see what's kind of going on in the background for people, we can have better empathy, we can have better understanding, we can have more grace for those people instead of just surface level getting irritated or annoyed because they rubbed us the wrong way.
Absolutely.
So I love that. And I think that that's such a crucial skill for everybody. I mean, I know you do it more in the corporate space and with like, people in the workforce. But even in the level with like teenagers and parents, like that is so important for you to understand each other, right? As like a parent to understand your kid and your kid to understand your parent and for you both to understand yourselves.
Yeah.
I talk a lot of that when I do career coaching with students. I'm like on the career exploration side, if you don't know your strengths, your passions, your purpose, like all these pieces, you're not going to know which career path to go on to. Like you're not going to know because you don't know yourself. You have to know who you are first. And I think even like Enneagram and DISC and all these other aspects, the more you know those different pieces, the more you actually know what you enjoy and bring to the table. And that can actually help you better with even finding a career path. Because like you said, you're going to say, okay, if somebody's one, and maybe they're more prone to anger, maybe construction worker is not the best thing because you're going to be angry a lot, right? It's just like there's different things of that.
And then to that point, in construction, there's a million things that can go wrong.
Yes.
And for one that's a perfectionist, they really don't like that.
Yeah.
So, construction might not be the best for a one. Although if a one did build a house, it'd be a beautiful. It would be top notch. It'll take about 10 years for them to build it, but when it's done, let me tell you.
But that's the stuff that's so important. And I mean, that, and a lot of families don't realize that, and a lot of people in general don't realize the value behind that in itself. Like just that piece alone of the more you know about you, and as you learn this stuff, you're going to start to see it in other people. Like, hey, I'm not a one, but I know what a one is now. So, you're probably a one. You're probably a three, right? And you can start to kind of figure that out. And then it does make it a lot easier when that person reacts differently than you. And or you're not seeing eye to eye, you now have a better understanding. It doesn't mean you have to go cave into them or agree with them if you truly disagree, but it's at least you now understand it better, which I think our world could use more of, understanding each other better.
Yeah. And then just understanding how different people react to conflict. So you had mentioned that with your son, like understanding, they might have had a really bad day or something might have happened at home. I think that one of the things that I've been trying to get across as far as my messaging, especially on social media recently, is just most conflict and defensiveness is rooted in insecurity.
Yep.
And as soon as you realize that, you can approach people with more compassion, because what I have found is the people that are very huffy puffy, they're very quick to put people down. When I see that now, I don't internalize that as I'm bad. They're telling me that I'm stupid in some way. I actually think like, to me, that looks like insecurity, because now I know I'm like, oh, there's something in there that isn't healed. And that's not on me. That's not my fault.
Yep.
And I think that the faster we can realize that, the faster we can respond with calm and compassion, like I mentioned. But then also there are different people that then get defensive and handle conflict very differently. So if you look at an 8 and a 9 on the Enneagram, for example, those are very, very different people. The 8 is called the challenger. So they're very quick to, they don't care. Like they'll get in a fight with you about it. And to them, that's like healthy banter to them. Conflict doesn't bother them at all. They don't look at it as a negative thing. They don't look at it as something that's going to damage your relationship. They actually look at it it's fun. Like almost as like a more intimate, intense conversation. It's more engaging for them. They're also people that feel like if you're under pressure, your real colors are going to come out, and they really value honesty, trust, and respect. So when they're seeing your true colors, they're like, okay, like now I know what kind of person that person really is. The 9, on the other hand, is like allergic to confrontation.
That's probably me.
So if you're an 8 and there's an issue on a project and you come at a 9, like huffy puffy and like that, you're not going to get very far, because the 9's going to shut down and just kind of like yes you to death and walk away because they don't want to deal with it. So making sure that you understand what personality you are and what the personalities are on the team so that you can all get the best out of each other.
Yep.
And no one's having those awkward situations where you're shutting down or feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I think, and like you touched on with the emotional intelligence, I mean, that is the core definition of emotional intelligence, is being able to manage your emotions, like knowing this is why this person did this, or whether it's insecurity or whatever, and being able to not react. And I think that is such a crucial skill regardless, like being able to step away and being able to not take things personally and not take things to heart and not get offended by everything. I mean, that truly is emotional intelligence. And let's be honest, in our world today, it's lacking. And a lot of people might think, oh, I'm emotionally intelligent and I know this and that. Okay, well, but you're getting offended by everything. You're out there being a keyboard warrior on social media. Like, that's not emotional intelligence. You're acting like a middle school kid who's going through puberty. Like, that's there. And it's not to be mean. I mean, this is real talk, right? We're having real talk about this, but that's the reality of it. And honestly, you're seeing that in the adults. What do you think these kids are going to come up doing?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, okay, I'm seeing how mom reacts or how dad reacts to these situations or to road rage or to any of this other stuff. Your kids are impacted by that. Even if you don't have a good relationship with your kids, they're still impacted by that. And they're still it's going to get rubbed off. I mean, it really is. And so I think that's something that like everybody needs to invest in, is emotional intelligence for your sake, plus your family's sake and your kids' sake and your coworkers' sake and all these other things. I mean, that it would just be, I couldn't even imagine, be like a complete 180 in this country if people actually went through even just a little bit of training on that.
Yeah. And I think I want to hone in on the example that you gave of road rage or the keyboard warrior, because what is this? Again, this is what we talked about earlier. It's emotion that we're experiencing manifesting as anger.
Yes.
And it's very specifically manifesting as anger because we're taught that that's okay. That's adult, that's appropriate. That's more masculine. And, sadness, if you were to cry or get upset or frustrated, that's more feminine. And whether you're a man or a woman, that can be very frowned upon, especially in the corporate space. So anger is always assumed to be more appropriate. So so now when I deal with the people that, are having the road rage, because as you know, I take long road trips. Someone flipped me off on the way here, and Mark's like, did you see that? And I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, he's emotionally dysregulated. That's not my problem. and that's the thing. Like, I was just like, I honestly, at this point, because I'm the one driving and I'm like, whatever. Like, I actually find it a little bit comical that there's grown men that can't control their emotions in this way. And as much as it is like funny when I'm safe in my own car, like, it's really not, because these are the people that like go off the rails and you don't know what can happen. And like you said, I don't know what kind of day that he's had. If he could be hangry. You know what I mean? It could have nothing to do with me. He could have just gotten off the phone having an argument with a loved one. And so there's all of these things that can impact our emotions and how we react to people. But if we don't keep our emotions in check constantly and say, okay, well, what am I really feeling? Well, I'm really feeling sadness about this conversation that I had with my wife, or I really feel rejected because I'm not getting the type of attention or affection that I'm wanting. So what I'm really feeling is rejection, but now I'm going to be angry because rejection feels really bad. And I don't want to feel that. I don't want to move through it. And I don't want to tell that person like, oh, when this happens, I was made to feel this way. Right. Because that's difficult. That's a hard conversation to have. So we're just going to be angry so that they know that they hurt our feelings. Right. Right. And that's just not a healthy way to move through life. And like you said, everyone's offended now. And it's easy to not get offended when you understand emotional intelligence. And I'm not offended by you flipping me off. Right. Because I understand that like this is a you problem. Yes. The way that I'm driving, you not letting you cut me off is really not my problem. Like, and it's nothing I did wrong. I'm also not in the wrong here. And you're freaking out. So just when you see that in real life and you're able to see these examples, it becomes glaringly obvious that the world needs a lot more of the emotional intelligence training, which, like I said, we're not given, and we're actually taught the opposite. We're actually taught that anger is okay.
Yeah, you're just taught to feel those emotions and let them rip. Like, and it's like, that's not, no, I mean, emotions, I mean, they tell you don't make decisions based on emotions. Like, I mean, but that's what we're all doing when we decide to react to that comment. I mean, and I find myself, mine's not usually angry. I usually take it personally and get hurt, not even offended, just hurt. Because when you are super close to something, like I had somebody, I tried to share a resource in a Facebook group, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and I was laying in bed, and it was a homeschooling group, and somebody was asking about something with their kiddo, and I had a perfect resource for it. Of course, it's paid, I'm a business. And I just said, hey, I have this resource guide or this involvement guide that I created, and this, that, and the other, and would love to, share it if you're interested. And I had a bunch of people comment say, yeah, I would love it. Well, then one lady, when she found out that it was a paid resource, basically completely like attacked me in a way that made me, she basically said I was being manipulative. And I mean, that really cut me to the core, because I'm not a manipulative person. And that really hurt me, because I'm like, I don't want people thinking that. I mean, I care too much about what people think when it comes to that stuff, because I'm like, oh, no, like I was just trying to share a resource. I'm like, I was exhausted. I was laying in bed going to bed, and I didn't even think to say, oh, by the way, I'm a business and this is a paid resource. I didn't think about that. And I did go back in and edit my comment, because she was right. I mean, it did look a little misleading, but it really like I just like, oh gosh, like, and I even messaged some of the people afterwards, like, I am so sorry if like there was somebody pointed out and brought to my attention that this, I didn't clarify this was a paid resource. So I do apologize for that. Because I wasn't trying to be sneaky. That's what the word she used was, sneaky and manipulative. And I'm like, that is not me at all. And I don't want people to think that of me. But again.
But if hypothetically you were like, I have a really bad stomach ache, and I was like, Traci, I have the best thing for you, blah, blah, blah. They're called Tums. And you were to go to the store and be like, Sarah, Tums aren't free. What were you thinking? That doesn't make sense, Traci.
That's
like,
true.
Normally, things that help you, you pay for.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So sometimes we also have to cut, like as business owners, we have to cut ourselves some slack. Like things that help you, you pay for.
Yes.
In every other facet of life.
Yep.
So why would our business, why would a service-based business be any different?
Yep.
When I went to school, they didn't teach me mathematics out of the goodness of their heart. They taught me because I paid for it. Yep. So even though it wasn't a physical thing, it wasn't food or a house or whatnot, like the skills that I've learned, the education that I've acquired, that's all been paid for.
Right.
So the education that we're giving people isn't going to be different than that. It's also going to be paid for, because it's something designed very specifically to solve a very specific problem. Yep.
And it's a challenge. And that's something I think I got so upset about it, because I know in the homeschool world, they do share a lot of free resources. A lot of parents will create something because they're like, oh, I learned this homeschooling my kids, so I'll share this resource out to people. And so I think that's a natural assumption is, oh, it's probably free, because a lot of people create resources. But I'm like, it's different though, when it's like, but this is different. It's like, I'm not just sharing, hey, here's what I learned as a homeschooling mom. Let me just help you out. And it's like, well, you wanted involvement. Well, I created an entire involvement guide. Why would I? And I guess the thing in my head, like, well, I wouldn't have created that except for as an expert. So, yeah. But it was, I just took offense, like not offense, but again, just like I was like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Like I felt so bad. But I had to check myself. And like you said, I mean, I still wanted to write it in the sense of like, okay, I apologize. And I told her, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean for it to come off that way. But I had to check myself and not not harp on it. But those are the things that I get from, when somebody makes a nasty comment or whatever, I take it to heart, because especially when it's your business, it is you, you're putting yourself out there in that sense. And so I have to be very careful of that, because I mean, you can get triggered very easily, whether it's anger or sadness or offense or any of those things. And you have to, if you know your intelligence and those things, you're like, okay, gotta step back from this. Yeah. And really process, okay, why am I getting upset by this too? Because it's not even just what they're doing and why they're reacting that way, but it's like, why am I getting upset about that? I remember Pastor Conan talked about that at church one time about, why am I getting offended by this? Like, what is it in me that is offended by this? And sometimes we have to really do that self-evaluation of like, oh, what's going on here? Yeah. It really isn't a big deal. It was a comment on social media. Like, it's, why am I getting so upset about this?
Yeah. But it takes a very secure person to step back and say, okay, well, if this person was really bothered, obviously, is there something that I could have done better? So your approach was, yeah, well, moving forward, I'll make sure I clarify next time that, this resource that I'm offering up is a paid resource.
Right.
Because I am a business. So Yeah, but you admitted, I wasn't doing this to be sneaky. I was really just giving this to you because I think it can help you, but at the same time, it is a paid resource. So I think that you did all the right things. You took a step back, you figured out, okay, what could I have done better? But then realized that like this, you understood where your intention was and then clarified where you needed to clarify. And I think you handled it well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you for the precious gift of your time. If you found this helpful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone you love. Until next time, count your blessings, love yourself, and stay fabulous.